So, my sister's banned me from her wedding. She says her fiancé still has feelings for me. Now he won't marry her because of it. I'm Michelle, 20, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. My older sister Emily, 25, is supposed to marry Jonathan, 25. At first, everything seemed perfect. We all thought they were meant to be together and they'd been together for years. But then things took a weird turn and now their wedding's off. Why won't my sister let me go to their wedding? So Jonathan doesn't want to marry her, and Emily thinks he's got feelings for me. I know that sounds a bit crazy, but let me explain. I'm not really close with my parents or sister. I kind of drifted away from them when I started college, but there wasn't anything major that made me fall out with them. Since I moved to college, I haven't really spent much time at home. I usually travel or go to my grandparents' house during the spring holidays. Thanet said he thought going back home was probably the best option, as it seemed like a worse experience than dealing with the hassle of being stuck at home. The thing is, I'm not really like my sister or parents. If you know what I mean, we've never really clicked. I don't really fit in with them, it's like they don't really understand me. To be honest, they never really tried to get to know me. They'd bond over something that I didn't care about, and it felt like I was speaking a foreign language whenever I brought up something. I thought they might just listen, nod, then go back to their own stuff, so I gave up trying after a while. But here's what really hurts, they didn't try to contact me as I started to distance myself from them. They seemed pretty happy about me leaving, almost like they were glad to see me go. To be honest, family members should be aware when someone they know is slowly fading away, but they didn't seem to care. It just confirmed I always thought I didn't fit in with them. I only went to see them for big events like birthdays and holidays. Even then, I felt more like a visitor than a proper part of their lives. I'd show up, take care of the family business, and then leave. The conversation was always polite but not deep. We never had a real connection or warmth. Also, Emily and I never had the close bond that a lot of siblings have. She was always the golden child, the one who did everything. I always felt like I didn't really fit in with them. I only went to see them for special occasions like birthdays and holidays. Even then, I felt more like a visitor than a proper member of the family. I'd show up, take care of the family business, and then leave. We were always polite, but it was a bit superficial. There wasn't any real connection or warmth. Also, Emily and I never had that strong bond that a lot of siblings have. She's always been the golden child, the one who did everything. She's the one who went to the right schools, got the good jobs, and fit in perfectly. I was the odd one out, the black sheep. They're not awful people, but the way they secretly make fun of me shows that they might be true bullies. You know how some small comments can have a huge impact, even if they seem innocent at first. That's how I felt. In the end, I decided it was better to avoid them as much as possible. Why put yourself in an uncomfortable situation if you don't have to? Of location, situation, etc. The problem is that when Jonathan joined us for Christmas dinner last year, I didn't feel totally invisible for the first time in ages. My family always makes me feel like an outsider in my own house and that I don't belong. But Jonathan didn't treat me like that. Instead of treating me like the odd one out, he was actually kind and spoke to me like a regular person. I didn't give it much thought at first. It was only basic politeness, after all. However, Emily was very troubled by this for some reason. It's not as though Jonathan and I were engaging in a meaningful private discussion, we simply discussed a variety of topics, including travel, school, amusing incidents at work and other everyday topics. However, Emily seemed strange about it. Right away, I tried to ignore the cold. At first, I didn't think much of it. I mean, it was just basic politeness, right? But Emily was really weirded out by it for some reason. It's not like Jonathan and I were having some deep private conversation. We just chatted about random stuff, like travel, school, funny things that happened at work, and other everyday things. But Emily was acting kinda strange about it right away. She kept giving me the cold stares during dinner, and then she straight up told me later that night, "I know what you're doing, and you're trying to take my boyfriend, even though you've always been jealous of me." I was totally shocked. I mean, steal her man. Even so, where did that come from? She wouldn't let it go. Even after I told her she was being silly and laughed it off, she insisted that I was being too nice to Jonathan and that he was acting strangely around me. I was at a loss for words. Where on earth did this come from? I've always been the center of attention, my parents adore her. She's the ideal person, she's their golden child. I understand that, but saying that I tried to steal her fiancé was a new low. Like I normally do. I tried to ignore it because of her drama, assuming it was just insecurity or something. But after that night, things became strange. I didn't think Emily could have got any farther away from us. She seemed to be deliberately avoiding me, even though we were never close. She would either act as though she couldn't be bothered or give. I tried to ignore her drama, thinking she was just feeling insecure or worried about something. But after that night, things got weird between us. I didn't think Emily could have got any further away. She was avoiding me, even though we were never close. She'd either act like she couldn't be bothered or give me one-word answers when I tried to talk to her. At family get-togethers, she'd hang out with Jonathan, as if she needed her space. It was ridiculous. Jonathan, though, acted like nothing had changed. He was nice, friendly, and normal around me. What really irritates me, I suppose, is how easily my family seems to agree with Emily. There were subtle clues, but no one ever spoke to me directly. Every time I'd give one-word answers, and she'd stick to Jonathan's side at family get-togethers, as if she were claiming her space. It was ridiculous. Jonathan, however, pretended that nothing had changed. He was courteous, amiable, and normal in my presence. What really irritates me, I suppose, is how easily my family seems to agree with Emily. There were subtle clues, but no one ever spoke to me explicitly. Every time Emily and Jonathan were present, my mother would give me these strange stares. My dad, who is generally quite indifferent, began saying more about the value of connections and the necessity of family support. Everything was quite passive-aggressive. My anger increased as I gave it more thought. I've never been the kind to become entangled in the drama of others, much less that of my sister. Why would I suddenly get interested in Emily's? Emily and Jonathan were there, and my mother gave me these odd stares. My dad, who normally doesn't say much, started talking about the importance of relationships and needing support from family. It was all a bit passive-aggressive. I got more and more annoyed as I thought about it. I've never been one for getting caught up in other people's dramas, especially not my sister's. So why the sudden interest in Emily's fiancé? We barely speak outside of family stuff. It didn't make any sense. My grandparents told me about Emily's engagement a few months later. I didn't even know my own sister was getting married. I found out from my grandparents, which was a bit of a shock. I wasn't expecting her to send me a personal invite with love and glitter or anything, you know the kind. We barely ever speak, other than at family gatherings. So, it was weird that my grandparents told me about Emily's engagement a few months later. I didn't even know my own sister was getting married. When my grandparents told me, it was a bit of a shock. I wasn't expecting her to send me a personalized invitation with love and glitter, or anything like that. You know, the kind that makes you feel validated. I guess I had been clinging to a bit of hope that, even though she was stressed and distant, she would still think of me as being part of this big moment in her life. I thought, hey, we're sisters, right? I know we're not super close, but I'm still her family, you know. I guess that was too much to ask, though when I found out about the engagement, I didn't tell Emily. I thought maybe she'd forgotten to tell me, or was busy with the wedding stuff. I still thought she'd call or at least invite me, but it was days then weeks and still nothing. Then I got a call from Emily. I hadn't spoken to her since that weird accusation over Christmas, so I was surprised when her name appeared on my phone. I replied, trying to sound casual, like my own sister hadn't forgotten me. She told him after a few awkward minutes of small talk. I'm not inviting you to the wedding. I tried to take in what she had just said. I became silent for a moment, even though I wasn't keen to leave or anything. It still hurt to hear her say it. When I asked her why, she gave me the most ridiculous explanation. I don't want you there because Jonathan has feelings for you. It will be uncomfortable. I laughed. I couldn't believe it. Jonathan doesn't like me, and even if he did, I wouldn't have stood. I didn't even want to argue because it was ridiculous. I just hung up after saying, "Have a great wedding and happy marriage." I didn't care about being part of her special day because I didn't need that drama in my life. To be honest, we weren't close. Emily and I were living in two different worlds, and I had long since accepted that. I had to speak up at the ceremony to say how much I love him. I didn't want to argue, because it was ridiculous. I just said, "Have a great wedding and happy marriage," and then hung up. I didn't care about being at her wedding, because I don't need that drama in my life. To be honest, we weren't close. Emily and I were living in two different worlds, and I had accepted that. But I just needed to get it out of my system and see things from someone else's point of view. Am I the only one who thinks this is crazy? Has anyone else been in a similar situation? I'd love any advice. I need to write this all down while I can remember it, because yesterday was crazy. Emily's rehearsal dinner went totally crazy, and I got caught up in it. I just had to get it all out there and see what was going on. Am I the only one who thinks this is all a bit crazy? Has anyone else been in a similar situation? I'd love some advice or an update. I need to get this all down while it's still fresh in my mind, since yesterday was a total nightmare. Emily's rehearsal dinner turned into chaos and I somehow ended up right in the middle of it all. My phone started going nuts when I was just chillin' with my laptop, working on an assignment. I tried to ignore it at first, but lately I've gotten pretty good at that. However, in less than 10 minutes, I saw that I had 7 missed calls from my dad. My dad doesn't call more than once now. He just assumes you're busy if you don't respond right away and he'll try again later. Then there were 7 calls. It was obvious he was worried. When I finally answered, he sounded like someone I'd never heard before. "Michelle, you've got to visit the location straight away," he said, like a broken record. "It's about Jonathan and Emily." When I asked what was wrong, he just said, "Please, come." His voice was so desperate that it alarmed me a bit, but here's the thing. Did they really think I'd just drop everything and rush to their aid after all the turmoil, allegations and exclusion from the wedding? I told him, "Remember, Dad, I'm not attending." So, at the wedding, Emily made it pretty clear that Michelle was not going to be there. Jonathan said he wasn't going to hold the wedding without her. Then my phone beeped again, and it was Mom. She was in tears. She kept saying, "Your sister needs you," like she'd forgotten how they treated me the last few months. It was strange hearing her talk about sisterly love and family loyalty when they'd been fine without me until things went wrong. Emily then called in a really messed up voice. Jonathan apparently showed up for the rehearsal dinner and asked me right away where I was. He lost it when Emily told him I wasn't invited, but he was more subdued and disappointed than furious. He said he couldn't marry someone who would treat their own sister that badly in front of their friends, the wedding party and both families. Emily sobbed into the phone. He said that after seeing how they treated me, he couldn't be part of a family that would reject me. He said that someone had said something like, "Mom and Dad," and that he didn't want to be around such poisonous behavior. To be honest, I felt validated. Someone had finally witnessed what I had endured for years. In fact, someone had spoken up and declared that it was unacceptable. Emily wasn't finished though. In between sobbing, she began outlining this intricate plan for me to visit the location and explain that there had been a major misunderstanding and that I was the one who decided not to attend the wedding, claiming that it was all my idea. She kept on saying, "We can sort this out. Just tell Jonathan that you're not going to the wedding, and that you never wanted to go in the first place. Michelle, please, I can't let him go." It was totally bold, and it's ridiculous that after it was all down to me. I just kept on repeating, "We can sort this out. Come and tell John that you're not going to the wedding. Tell him you weren't left out, Michelle. Please, I can't let him go." It was totally bold of me, after months of me acting like a villain and being told straight up that I wasn't allowed to go to her wedding because her fiancé might fancy me. She wanted me to lie to keep her connection going, even though I'd made her feel like crap in my own family. I let her cry on that. After months of me acting like a villain, she told me straight up that I wasn't allowed to go to her wedding because her fiancé might be attracted to me. She wanted me to lie to keep her connection intact, even though I'd made her feel like trash in my family. I let her cry on the other end of the line for ages without saying anything. Then, as coolly as I could, I said, "Emily, you're dealing with the repercussions of ignoring me and treating me like I didn't exist. Fixing it isn't my responsibility, but he'll hear you." She almost let out a scream. "He believes in you." I told her that maybe he trusts me because I've never given him a reason not to, and maybe he has doubts about your true identity because of how you've treated me. Either way, I won't be attending the event. And I won't be telling any lies to make you look better. She was still moaning when I hung up. I then made myself a cup of tea, switched off my phone entirely and sat down to think about what had just happened. My phone kept lighting up with notifications over the next few hours. I checked it and found voicemails from my parents, missed calls from Emily's pals and texts from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. The whole family seemed to have joined forces to try to get me to clean up Emily's mess, but what do you know? For the first time ever, I was dead certain that avoiding them was the right thing to do. Jonathan alone had been able to see through their actions, not because of anything I'd said or done, but because of how they treated me. He'd come to that conclusion, and, to be honest, that seemed like the fullest confirmation I could have hoped for. Last night, I went to bed without using my phone, and I slept better than I have in months. For once, let them handle the consequences of their own behavior. I'm done cleaning up other people's mess and being the family scapegoat. My grandparents, who are the only relatives I still talk to, told me this morning that Jonathan isn't answering calls from Emily or my parents. It seems he's told his family the wedding is final. My parents are working hard to contain the damage. Emily's inconsolable, and I'm just sitting here, at last, happy with my choice to keep my distance. I realize this is a long message, but I had to say it all. I appreciate all the comments on my previous post that agreed with my choice to keep my distance from my family. You were okay. Sometimes it's probably best to take a step back and let others deal with the consequences of their own actions. A lot of you wanted to know about my early years and the reasons behind my long-term estrangement from my family. Since it's quite a story, I didn't go into detail in my first post, but in light of recent events, I think now is a good time to explore some of it. The problem is that I suffer from social anxiety. I always had the feeling that something was wrong with me as a child, but I was never able to put it into words. However, my parents were traditionalists who thought they'd often say things like, "Toughen up," or "You're just being dramatic," if I mentioned having a mental health condition. They'd say things like, "You're weak," or "lazy," if I got anxious or had a panic attack, as if I was choosing to feel that way. Now, I can see a lot of warning signs. When I was 15, I had a big presentation for English class. The thought of standing in front of 30 students was a recipe for social anxiety. I had trouble sleeping the night before and felt physically ill on the morning of the presentation. I begged to stay at home. I told my parents, and my dad said that getting nervous won't stop life from going on. I had a proper panic attack in class in front of everyone. My voice was cracking and some kids were even laughing, and my hands were shaking so much I couldn't hold my notes. The room was spinning, but I couldn't leave. Instead of being comforting, my mum just said, "Well, you made it through. All that drama was for nothing." Everything was made worse by Emily, who was the perfect sister. I was student body president, debate team captain and pretty much everything else, but I couldn't do it because of my anxiety. When she had big get-togethers with her friends, people would say I was the weird sister who never came out of her room. I heard Emily say to her pals once, "Yeah, she's just antisocial. She thinks she's too good to be with anyone." My life changed when I was in college. My first semester was a total meltdown for me. I was away from home, adjusting to new social circumstances and trying to balance my anxiety while attending classes. It got to be too much. I remember feeling like I was dying in my dorm room, gasping for air. My roommate, bless her, almost dragged me to the counseling center because she could see something was really wrong. The first person who truly listened to me was Dr. Martinez, whom I met. She didn't try to make me toughen up or pretend I wasn't feeling anything. Instead, she helped me understand what was going on. After a few sessions, she suggested I see a psychiatrist to get a proper diagnosis. It felt like I was finally giving that monster I'd been fighting all my life a name. When I finally got a diagnosis of social anxiety disorder, it wasn't about seeking attention or being dramatic, like my family had always said. It was a real condition, and more importantly, it could be treated. The treatment sessions opened my eyes. I learned from Dr. Martinez that my family's actions were not only unsupportive but also purposefully damaging. She taught me about setting limits, advocating for myself, and identifying harmful behaviors. That's when I started to intentionally distance myself from my family. What really bothers me though is that my parents, I tried to explain my diagnosis to them, but they didn't agree. These doctors are just trying to make money by labeling everything a disease. My mom said I was just using big words to justify my antisocial behavior. Emily added, rolling her eyes, I made one final attempt to explain things to them last Thanksgiving, before all of this wedding turmoil began. I had prepared an entire speech on social anxiety, complete with research and figures. Michelle, when are you going to stop making excuses and start living in the real world? My dad interrupted me mid. I realized that they were never going to change. They never tried to understand that they had this idea of me as the challenging one, the dramatic one, the problem. And, weirdly, it was actually quite liberating when I realized that. I stopped looking for them to understand or accept me. Looking back, I can see how this tendency contributed to the wedding situation, my parents' quick acceptance of Emily's story without even challenging it, and Emily's quick leap to believe I was stealing her fiancé. It's all part of their I guess this whole thing with my parents and the wedding is just part of their way of thinking, you know. Like, they always thought I was the one causing problems and that I should be managed, but Jonathan saw right through it. He saw how they treated me, how they didn't even acknowledge my feelings, and how they blamed me for everything. He called it out, and he was the only one in my family who did that. Everyone else just accepted their own version of reality. I guess I'm trying to say that this wedding drama wasn't just a one-off. It's the result of years of family stuff where I was always seen as the bad guy, the problem child, and the one who needed fixing. Maybe that's why Jonathan's choice seems so right to me. Someone else finally noticed what I've been going through for years. Yes, that is I guess I'm trying to say that this wedding drama wasn't just a one-off. It was the result of years of family stuff, where I was always seen as the bad guy, the problem child, and the one who needed to be fixed. Maybe that's why Jonathan's choice feels so right to me. Someone else finally saw what I've been going through for years. Yes, that's the backstory a lot of you asked for. It shows why I'm not in a rush to make repairs right now. I've spent far too many years trying to change how my family sees me, trying to get their understanding and acceptance. I've accepted that some people, even members of your family, will never understand or accept you. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is I've been meaning to tell you all this for a while. I've spent years trying to change how my family sees me, trying to get their understanding and acceptance. But I've realized that some people, even members of your family, will never understand or accept you. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is update. 3 months have gone by since everything went wrong, and now I've got to tell you the last part of this story. What started as a wedding drama is finally over, but it's turned into something I never could have predicted. Emily lost everything when her wedding was called off. She got my new phone number somehow and shared it. I'm going to tell you the rest of the story now. A month has gone by since everything went wrong, and I've finally reached the last part. What started as a wedding drama has turned into something I never could have predicted. Emily lost everything when her wedding was called off. She got my new phone number somehow and shared it with everyone she knew. I got hundreds of hateful comments from strangers, acquaintances and distant family members. There were threats, guilt trips and intimidation. The vandalism followed the classic Emily style. She used to do this to girls she detested in high school. She was the first to leave eggs in my car. She escalated when that didn't work. I told everyone I knew about it. Then I got hundreds of hateful comments from strangers, acquaintances and distant family members. They were trying to make me feel guilty and intimidate me. The vandalism followed a classic Emily pattern. She used to do this to girls she detested in high school. She started by leaving eggs in my car. Then she escalated when that didn't work. The desired response. I can't even remember how many times I discovered my mailbox ruined, my car vandalized or my apartment door covered in offensive notes. She cut all 4 of my car tires and left a threatening note in her distinctive handwriting, which was the last straw. My parents consciously chose to ignore Emily's actions. During all of this, girls will be girls, or you. I remember finding my mailbox ruined, my car vandalized and my apartment door covered in offensive notes. She even cut all 4 of my car tires and left a threatening note in her distinctive handwriting, which was the last straw. My parents consciously chose to ignore Emily's actions. Their standard response to every event was to dismiss it as Emily just wanting to talk, even after I showed them security camera footage of her attempting to break into my flat. However, I was ready, especially thanks to this incredible Reddit community, especially those who suggested that I install security cameras and record everything. I learned from the attorney you suggested that this constituted criminal harassment and vandalism rather than just family drama. Using witness accounts, video evidence, photos and hundreds of threatening messages, we created a solid case. Emily ultimately realized she had gone too far when my lawyer provided our evidence, along with the cease and desist notice. Her attempted break-in was thwarted. So, Emily finally saw that she had gone too far when my lawyer showed them the evidence, including the cease and desist notice. They had it on security tape, which was really damaging. She tried to bargain through her own lawyer, saying that if I dropped everything, she would cover the damages, but I said no. This wasn't about money, it was about accountability and penalties. The court case went quickly and decisively. Emily was accused of trying to break an interim restraining order for criminal harassment and vandalism. She was given a permanent restraining order, had to do therapy, and was told she had to. It was all caught on security tape, which was really damaging. She tried to bargain through her own lawyer, saying that if I dropped everything, she would cover the damages. But I said no. This was about accountability and penalties, not money. The court case went quickly and decisively. Emily was accused of trying to break in and committing criminal harassment and vandalism. She was given a permanent restraining order, had to do therapy and was given a 1-year suspended sentence. Because of the deliberate nature of her conduct and the substantial evidence of her increasing behavior, the judge was especially severe. My parents' response to the decision was expected. After all, they had destroyed my sister's life over a few pranks. They accused me of being heartless. In fact, they advised me to just move away if I felt unsafe. After I told them that Emily had repeatedly harassed me and caused damage, they said that my belongings and tried to break into my house. I never wanted to speak to them again after that. We settled the civil lawsuit out of court. As well as the damages for emotional distress and lost wages, Emily had to pay for all the harm she caused. Her harassment campaign on social media cost me a number of freelancing businesses. More significantly, the settlement included my stuff was stolen and they tried to break into my house. I didn't want to speak to them again after that, so we settled out of court. Emily had to pay for all the harm she caused me, including damages for emotional distress and lost wages. Her harassment of me on social media cost me a number of freelancing businesses. Most importantly, the settlement included a non-compete clause that stops our parents from getting involved or acting like flying monkeys. My lawyer said that Emily and my parents were worried about their reputations, which made them want to settle quickly. It turns out that they care more about what their country club friends think than about doing the right thing. Since then, I've moved to a new apartment in a building that is secure and under constant observation. I've closed my social media accounts, updated my contact information, and my clients have been incredibly understanding of the situation. Someone who heard about what happened was impressed by how I dealt with it. I was pretty surprised that they even offered me a job. It feels great to be free of my family's expectations and criticism. I'm not the scapegoat anymore. I am just Michelle, living my own life the way I want to. I'm not the drama queen or the troublemaker. It was a total surprise, but it's made me feel so much more at ease. I don't feel like I have to live up to my family's expectations or get their approval. I'm just Michelle, living my own life the way I want to. I'm not the dramatic type or someone who likes to cause trouble. The Reddit community was actually the reason my life changed. They helped me through everything, from the court case to the paperwork and security stuff. Your advice on what documents I needed and how to stay safe was so important when I was starting to doubt myself. Your kind words kept me going, and your stories about other people in the same situation made me realize that I wasn't the only one. Remember that sharing is important. DNA doesn't give someone the right to mistreat you if you're dealing with toxic family members. Sometimes, the healthiest thing to do is to walk away and let them deal with the fallout from their actions. It's about establishing limits and demanding respect, not about getting even. My social anxiety is improving, but I'm glad I've got over the criticism and gaslighting I experienced as a child, which I guess is why my social anxiety has improved. I'm not going to update you now that this phase of my life is over. I'm focusing on my education and career. I'm still here, and I'm ready to move on. I want to say a big thank you to everyone who supported me and followed my story. You gave me the confidence to leave and the strength to stand up for myself. I'd say the best revenge is living well. And the best way to deal with it all is to know that you've finally done it. I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who supported me and followed my story. You gave me the confidence to leave and the strength to advocate for myself. As they say, living well is the best revenge. I'm so glad you finally advocated for yourself. I am tired of being used as a scapegoat or victim by others. I've taken control of my life and I won't look back. Reddit, thank you for everything. And goodbye. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.